The streetlights flickered above as the evening swallowed what little color was left in the sky. I parked a few houses down, killing the engine, sitting there with the windows up and the silence pressing in so thick it hurt to breathe. There was no plan. There wasn't even anger yet. Only this hollow feeling like someone had scooped out my insides with a rusted spoon and left me running on fumes. Jessica. God, just saying her name in my head made me feel like an idiot. I stared at the house, our house, and it looked different somehow. Smaller. Uglier. Fake. Like one hard shove would make the whole thing collapse. I gripped the door handle until my fingers cramped, trying to stop myself from storming in and shouting every awful thing sitting on the tip of my tongue. But shouting would be too easy for her to brush off. She would turn those green eyes on me, fake a few tears, spin a lie so pretty it almost sounded like the truth. No. Not this time. I slipped out of the truck, walking up the drive slow, deliberate. My boots crunched against the gravel she always complained about but never offered to fix. It struck me then how many things she left for me to patch up, the fence, the bills, the lies. When I opened the door, she was standing there in the living room, arms crossed, looking at me like I was the one who had done something wrong. She still had her makeup on from whatever party she pretended not to go to, but it was smudged now, making her look wild. Untamed. I told him it was only a silly challenge, she said loudly to whoever was on the other end of her call, flipping her hair over her shoulder like some teenager caught sneaking out. Her voice dripped with annoyance, not even a hint of guilt. But he replaced the locks and silently gave me my things. She caught sight of me watching her and didn't even flinch. Just hung up without a goodbye, slipping the phone into her purse like she was finishing a chore she'd been putting off. That was real mature, she sneered, pointing at the pile of boxes I had stacked near the door. Seriously, you're being dramatic. I didn't answer her right away. I just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, letting the silence crawl between us until it made her squirm. Or at least until I thought it would. But she didn't squirm. She didn't even blink. Instead, she sauntered up to the boxes and started picking through them like she was shopping in a thrift store. She held up a sweatshirt, one of mine, smiled that poisonous little smile of hers, and tossed it back without a word. You're pathetic, she said, voice dripping honey and venom in equal parts. All this over a stupid dare. It didn't even mean anything. Didn't mean anything? I repeated, my voice sounding too calm even to my own ears. She shrugged, loose and careless. It was just fun. God, you're so boring lately. You used to be exciting, you know? You used to matter. That stung more than it should have. I clenched my jaw so tight my teeth ached, but I didn't move. She wanted a reaction. Wanted me to yell, cry, beg. Anything that would give her the power back. I wasn't handing it over. She pushed past me on her way out, the boxes wobbling in her arms. No goodbye. No second glance. Just the slam of her trunk as she threw her crap into the back seat and peeled off into the night like the devil was waiting for her. I stood there for a long time after she left, listening to the house creak and settle around me. The dog whined once from the hallway, sensing the emptiness that filled the place like smoke. I sank onto the bottom step, head in my hands, breathing in deep and exhaling even slower. I wasn't even sad yet. Not really. Sadness would come later, I knew. Right now, there was just this gaping hole where my life used to be. And the heavy, aching certainty that the woman I loved never really existed at all. The days blurred after that. I didn't bother touching the leftover boxes she hadn't taken. They sat there like landmines in the living room, daring me to open them, daring me to dig through the wreckage. I didn't. I walked around them, a ghost in my own house, going through the motions because it was easier than thinking. I kept waiting for her to come back. Not because I wanted her to, I didn't even know what I wanted anymore, but because Jessica always came back. Every fight, every cold shoulder, every drunken night she laughed off as blowing off steam, she always slithered her way back with some half-assed apology or a pathetic attempt at seduction. And every time, like a fool, I let her. But not this time. This time, the locks were different. And she knew it. On the fourth day, just as the sun was dipping low and staining the sky blood orange, my phone lit up. Jessica. No text, no call. Just her name blinking there like a curse. I stared at it until the screen went dark again. I let it ring the second time. And the third. By the fifth call, curiosity got the better of me. Against every shred of self-respect I had left, I answered. You miss me yet? Her voice was dripping with false sweetness, like she was still the queen and I was some servant who had dared to defy her. I could hear music blaring in the background, people laughing. Wherever she was already drunk. Come home, she cooed. Let's not be stupid about this. You're miserable. I'm miserable. Let's just call it even. I didn't say anything. Silence used to unnerve her. Used to make her scramble to fill the air with more lies, more poison disguised as affection. But now she seemed almost entertained by it. Oh, come on, baby. You're really gonna throw away 6 years over a little game? I told you it was just a stupid challenge. Everyone was doing it. It's not my fault you're too uptight to get it. There was a long pause where I swear I could hear her smirking through the line. Besides, she added, voice dipping into a taunt, it's not like you're gonna do better. That was it. That right there. It wasn't even the betrayal that broke me, it was the way she believed I would accept it. The way she was so sure of her grip on me that she thought a few sugar-coated words would make me forget the messages, the sneaking around, the disgusting jokes about how easy I was to fool. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just hung up. She called back immediately, but I let it ring until the voicemail picked up. And when she texted paragraph after paragraph of half-hearted apologies mixed with veiled insults, I deleted them without reading past the first lines. That night, I sat outside on the porch, a beer sweating in my hand, watching the stars blink into existence above me. The house behind me was too quiet. Too big for one person. For a moment, I thought about selling it. About wiping every trace of her from these walls, this town, this whole damn chapter of my life. The idea didn't scare me. It felt like breathing for the first time in months. I leaned back, letting the cold night air settle over me like a blanket. Somewhere out there, Jessica was probably throwing back shots, laughing with strangers, spinning new lies for a new audience. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't care. Not anymore. The following weekend, the storm finally broke. I was halfway through repainting the guest bedroom, something I had put off for 2 years because Jessica had always insisted it wasn't a priority, when I heard tires screeching up the driveway. I didn't need to look to know it was her. The way she slammed the car door, the click of her cheap heels striking the concrete, the furious rattle of the doorknob, it was a symphony of bad decisions I knew too well. I stayed where I was, roller in hand, pretending not to hear her. The door didn't open for her anymore. That fact seemed to enrage her even more. She started banging. First fists. Then flat palms. Then she kicked the bottom of the door so hard I heard something crack. Open the damn door, Liam, she screamed, voice raw, cutting through the still afternoon like a blade. Stop being a child. I kept painting. Slow, even strokes. Watching the new color cover the old, hiding every flaw she had ignored for years. It was almost therapeutic. But Jessica wasn't the type to go away quietly. After a few minutes of nothing, the pounding stopped. I heard her pacing on the porch, her voice rising again, more shrill now. I know you're in there. God, you are so pathetic. Over one little mistake? Grow up, Liam. I waited. Let her wear herself out. Let her spill every ugly word she had bottled up. And then, as if realizing rage wasn't working, she switched tactics. Her voice softened. Broke a little. Baby, please. Just let me in. Let's talk. We can fix this. You know we're good together. Good together. Like rust and rain. Still, I put the roller down, wiping my hands on an old rag. I walked to the door, slow and steady, heart pounding but my head clearer than it had been in months. I cracked it open just enough to see her. She looked awful. Mascara smudged. Hair frizzy from the humidity. Her expression a desperate mix of anger and panic. For a second, a sliver of the old Jessica flashed through, the one who used to sit cross-legged on the couch eating ice cream straight from the tub, laughing at terrible horror movies. But it wasn't real. I saw that now. It was just another mask she wore when it suited her. You need to leave, I said, voice low. Her mouth dropped open. It was like I'd slapped her. What? After everything? You made your choices, I cut in, keeping my tone even, cold. You chose him. Or them. However many there were. Her face twisted into a snarl. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough for you to humiliate me, I said, taking a step back. It meant enough for you to lie. To make jokes behind my back. To disrespect everything we built. She reached out suddenly, trying to force the door open wider, but I was faster. I pushed it closed with one steady shove, the lock clicking into place with a finality that echoed down to my bones. Through the door, I heard her let out a furious sob, the ugly kind that was half scream, half breakdown. For a second, I almost pitied her. Almost. Then I remembered every night she had left me wondering. Every text she answered too quick. Every time she made me feel like I was the crazy one for noticing the distance growing between us. Pity evaporated. And in its place, there was only resolve. Jessica pounded the door once more, let out a string of curses that would have made a sailor blush, and finally, I heard the fading sound of her footsteps retreating down the steps, across the gravel, back to whatever mess she thought she could run to next. I stood there long after she drove away, forehead resting against the cool wood of the door. It wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. But for the first time, the fight ahead didn't terrify me. It almost felt like freedom. Monday morning felt like pulling my own skin off. I sat at the kitchen table staring at a mug of black coffee gone cold, the dog curled at my feet, and the house so silent it buzzed in my ears. The reality of it all pressed down heavier than the humid spring air outside. No texts. No noise. No Jessica filling the house with her dramatic fake laughter or slamming cabinets because she couldn't find her favorite coffee mug that I apparently hid to punish her. The quiet didn't feel peaceful. Not yet. It felt like the aftermath of an explosion. And deep down, I knew another blast was coming. It didn't take long. By lunchtime, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Short. Nasty. You think you're better than me? You're a coward hiding behind a locked door. Everyone's laughing at you. No name. No signature. But it didn't have to have one. Jessica's fingerprints were all over it. I tossed the phone onto the counter and stared out the window, jaw tightening. She wasn't just mad. She was wounded. She had been expecting a war she could win, messy screaming matches, big dramatic fights where she could twist the narrative and make me look like the bad guy. But I hadn't played my part. I hadn't given her the show. And that scared her. Because a man who's finished? A man who's done. He's the most dangerous thing to someone who feeds off control. I started taking real steps after that. Cold, deliberate moves that cut through the emotional wreckage like a scalpel. I froze the joint bank accounts. Called the credit card companies. Took her name off the utilities. Replaced the passwords on everything from Netflix to the stupid thermostat app she used to control from her phone like some sad little dictator. And then I filed the papers. No separation. No counseling. No drawn-out circus. Divorce. Straight. Simple. Irrevocable. The lawyer, a guy named Brent with sad eyes and a brutal efficiency I appreciated more than I could say, didn't ask many questions. He just looked over the paperwork and said, "Looks like you've already done the hardest part." He had no idea. Or maybe he did. Maybe he'd seen 100 broken men sit in that same chair, pretending their hands weren't shaking, pretending their lives weren't burning to the ground while they scribbled signatures on dotted lines. Walking out of that office felt like walking away from a crash you weren't supposed to survive. The sky was gray when I stepped outside, fat raindrops starting to splatter against the pavement. I didn't run. I didn't duck for cover. I just stood there, letting it soak through my shirt into my skin, scrubbing the last fingerprints of that woman off me one drop at a time. Jessica didn't text again that day. Didn't call. Didn't show up screaming on the lawn. Part of me almost wished she would because anger was easier to deal with than the hollow space she left behind. But the bigger part of me knew. This wasn't the end of her. She was a storm that didn't know when to quit. And she wasn't done wrecking what little she had left. The next ambush came exactly 1 week later. I had just gotten back from work, tossed my keys into the little ceramic bowl by the door, and was kicking off my boots when I noticed the smell. Sweet, heavy, artificial. Jessica's perfume. The one she used to drown herself in when she wanted attention. I froze mid-step. There she was, sitting on the couch like she had never left, one leg crossed over the other, wearing the same smug little smirk that made my blood run cold. A half-empty bottle of wine sat on the coffee table along with 2 glasses, one untouched, one nearly drained. How the hell did you get in? My voice was low, dangerous even to my own ears. She twirled a key between 2 fingers like it was a toy. The spare. Hidden under the flower pot. Stupid. I should have moved it. Should have burned the whole damn plant. You think locks can keep me away? She said, standing slowly, letting the key clatter to the hardwood floor like it was some kind of statement. This is still my house too. No, I said, stepping farther into the room, keeping the distance between us wide. It's not. She laughed. A brittle, empty sound. You're really doing this, huh? You're really throwing away everything. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Jessica prowled closer, wine sloshing in the glass she gripped too tightly. Her lipstick was smudged. Her heels wobbled slightly on the wooden floor. The queen was crumbling but still pretending the throne was hers. You know, she whispered, standing close enough that I could smell the cheap alcohol on her breath, I could forgive you. If you just admit you overreacted. Forgive me. The audacity almost made me laugh. You're drunk, I said simply, stepping back. Get your things. Get out. Something inside her snapped then. Her face twisted into something ugly, feral almost, as she hurled the wineglass at the wall. It exploded in a rain of glass and cheap red wine, dripping down the paint like blood. You don't get to throw me away, she screamed, voice shrill enough to rattle the windows. I made you. Without me, you're nothing. I stood there. Silent. Unmoving. Letting the storm rage around me. Because I finally understood something. Jessica didn't want me back. She didn't miss me. She missed the control. The power. The guarantee that no matter what garbage she pulled, I'd still be there, still waiting like some loyal fool. Not anymore. I crossed the room slowly, calmly, and opened the front door. Leave, I said again, softer this time. More final. She hesitated for one brief second, and in that moment, she looked small. Like a kid who realized the party was over and everyone had already gone home. But then the sneer returned. She grabbed her purse, muttered something under her breath I didn't care to hear, and stalked out into the night without another word. I closed the door behind her, this time bolting it twice. I didn't move for a long time. The shattered glass still glittered across the floor, the wine staining the wood like a scar that wouldn't come out. I should have cleaned it up right away. But I didn't. Instead, I sat down on the cold tile of the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinets, the dog curling up beside me without being asked. And I cried. Not loud, not violent. Just the slow, silent leaking of everything I had been holding together with duct tape and sheer stubbornness. It wasn't just about Jessica. It was about every moment I let myself be lied to. Every time I swallowed my instincts. Every time I begged for scraps of loyalty from someone who treated love like a weapon. I sat there until the moon shifted higher and the house grew even colder. And somewhere deep in the pit of my gut, something settled into place, a cold, hard certainty. Jessica was never going to change. And I was never going back. The next few days, I stayed busy with things that didn't need to be done. I fixed the loose hinges on the kitchen cabinets, replaced the cracked light switch cover in the hallway, scrubbed the grout in the bathroom until my hands were raw. Anything to keep from thinking too much. Anything to keep the memories from bubbling up and dragging me under again. Jessica didn't show up. Not at first. But like rot in the foundation, she didn't stay away for long. It started with the notes. Crumpled pieces of paper shoved under the door, tucked behind the windshield wiper of my truck, slipped into the mailbox without postage. At first, they were desperate. Please talk to me. We can fix this. You're making a mistake. Then they turned bitter. You'll never find someone better. No one else will love you like I did. Everyone knows you're a joke without me. The handwriting got messier. The words more erratic. It was like watching her unravel one letter at a time. I didn't answer. I didn't acknowledge them. I just collected them in a shoebox, shoved it into the back of the closet, and slammed the door. One night, maybe a week after the wineglass incident, I came home from a late shift to find her waiting again. This time, she was parked across the street, sitting in her beat-up Corolla, headlights off, engine idling. The silhouette of her body barely visible through the windshield, cigarette burning between two fingers even though she never used to smoke. She didn't get out, didn't honk or shout. She just sat there, staring. I stood on the porch, keys in hand, the dog growling low at my feet. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced myself to stare back. I wanted her to see it, the part of me she hadn't broken. The part that wasn't afraid anymore. Minutes ticked by. Long, dragging minutes. Finally, she flicked the cigarette out the window, threw the car into gear, and peeled off down the street, tires squealing against the asphalt like a wounded animal. The dog barked once, sharp and angry, before settling down again. I exhaled slowly, unlocked the door, and went inside. Deadbolted. Chained it. Moved the heavy oak dresser in front of it, just in case. Because deep down, I knew it. Jessica wasn't going to let go cleanly. And that terrified me more than I wanted to admit. Lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow and lazy above me, I thought about all the moments I had missed. All the signs. All the warnings. The late nights out. The defensiveness about her phone. The fights that never quite made sense, where somehow I was always the villain in a story I didn't even know I was part of. It wasn't just one betrayal. It was death by 1,000 cuts. I let it happen because I loved her. Because I believed that love was enough to fix everything. Because I was too proud or too stupid to admit I was losing her long before I ever caught her lies. But now, laying there in the dark, I understood something colder and sharper than any betrayal. Jessica never loved me the way I loved her. Maybe she never loved me at all. Maybe she just loved having someone to orbit around her, someone to catch her when she fell and tell her she was still the center of the universe. And when I stopped doing that, when I stopped feeding her ego with blind loyalty, she hated me for it. Not because she missed me, but because I stopped being useful. The realization didn't hurt like I thought it would. It didn't break me. It set me free. 2 days later, it all came to a head. I should have known she wasn't going to let it fizzle out. Jessica was never the type to accept a loss quietly. If she couldn't win, she'd burn the whole field down just to say no one else could either. It was late afternoon when I pulled into the driveway and immediately noticed the front door wide open. My heart dropped straight through the floor. I killed the engine, jumped out of the truck, and sprinted up the steps, the dog barking frantically from somewhere inside. The air was thick with the smell of cheap vanilla perfume and something else, anger, maybe. That sour, metallic scent you can't quite name but always recognize when the world is about to tilt sideways. Inside, the house was a mess. Drawers yanked open. Picture frames shattered on the floor. Clothes I didn't even know she remembered tearing down from the closet and flung across the living room. And standing in the middle of it, barefoot, hair wild, breathing like she'd just run a marathon, was Jessica. She turned when she heard me, eyes glassy but sharp. "You left me no choice," she said, voice shaking with fury she didn't even try to hide. "You pushed me to this." I stepped inside cautiously, hands raised slightly, not out of fear, but out of cold, controlled calculation. Every instinct screamed that if I so much as twitched the wrong way, she'd escalate. "You need to leave," I said, calm but firm. She laughed, a high, broken sound, and kicked one of the fallen picture frames, sending shards of glass skating across the hardwood. "You think you can erase me?" she spat. "You think you can just, what? Replace me with some sad little hobby project and pretend we never happened?" I didn't answer. What was there to say to madness? What words could reach someone who only ever heard their own voice echoing back? She grabbed a sweatshirt off the couch, one of mine, held it up like it was evidence. "You think she's better than me?" Jessica shrieked. I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Don't lie to me," she screamed, voice cracking, tears finally spilling down her flushed cheeks. "I know there's someone else. You think I'm stupid?" It hit me then, the real reason for this meltdown. She couldn't fathom that I just choose to walk away. That I could finally see her for what she was without needing someone new waiting in the wings. It wasn't betrayal that broke her, it was rejection. "No one else," I said, voice even. "There's only me. There's only the wreckage you left." Jessica's face crumpled for a fraction of a second, a crack in the mask. But just as quickly, the fury returned, hotter, uglier. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "You think you're strong, but you're weak. You're nothing without me." I didn't flinch. "I already regret wasting this much time," I said quietly. "That did it." She let out a wounded howl, something almost animalistic, and bolted past me, shoving my shoulder hard enough that I stumbled back a step. She didn't even take anything, just stormed out barefoot, keys clutched in one hand, car door slamming hard enough to shake the windows. I stood there, chest heaving, the dog's nails clicking nervously on the floor beside me. It was over. Not clean. Not pretty. But final. I picked up the shattered picture frame, a photo from the early days, back when her smile had still looked real, and threw it into the trash without a second thought. Then I closed the door, locked it, and sat on the stairs, the weight of everything settling onto my shoulders like a second skin. But even through the exhaustion, even through the ache that hadn't left since the night I found those messages, there was something new blooming quietly inside me. Relief. The war was messy. But I had survived it. And the battlefield was finally mine again. I spent the next morning cleaning what she had left behind. Not just the broken glass or the shredded clothes or the wine stains she hadn't even bothered to wipe off the floor, but everything. The picture frames came down first. Every single memory we had mounted on the walls, birthdays, vacations, that fake candid photo she insisted we take at her sister's wedding, all of it went into a black trash bag. Her shoes in the hallway closet, the shampoo bottles she left half empty in the bathroom, the stupid monogrammed hand towels she insisted on buying even though she never once used them, all of it. Gone. Each item that disappeared into the trash felt like carving out a rotten piece of myself. A small death. A necessary one. I boxed up the last few things I thought she might actually want back: jewelry, some family heirlooms, a stack of letters she kept from high school boyfriends, ones she swore she had thrown away when we first moved in together but obviously never did, and drove them to her sister's house across town. I didn't even get out of the truck. I just left the box on the porch, sent a single text. "Your things are at Amanda's. Don't contact me again." Then I blocked her number. Blocked every fake account she had ever made. Blocked her family members, blocked her friends, blocked the world she came from because I wasn't going to leave any open windows for her to crawl back through. When I got home, the silence was so thick it was almost alive. But this time it didn't feel suffocating. It felt clean. I collapsed onto the couch, the ugly one she always said she hated but I loved because it was comfortable and real, and stared up at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles above me. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like a man drowning. I felt like a man standing on dry land, battered, bruised, but breathing. The hours passed. I watched them crawl across the floor with the shifting sunlight, listening to the old bones of the house creak and groan. It was just me and the dog and the long stretch of road ahead. And somehow that was enough. It wasn't perfect. There were moments the grief would sneak up and punch me in the ribs, a song on the radio, the sight of a restaurant we used to go to, a whiff of vanilla that would make my stomach turn, but it wasn't the kind of grief that begged me to go back. It was the kind that whispered, keep walking. Later that night, as I was hauling out the last bag of trash to the curb, a car slowed at the end of the street. A Corolla. Headlights dim. Engine idling like a predator crouching in the dark. Jessica. Even from a distance, I could feel the heat of her stare. But I didn't freeze. I didn't wave. I didn't even acknowledge her. I tossed the bag into the bin, turned on my heel, and walked back inside, locking the door behind me without a second glance. She stayed parked there for a long time. Maybe waiting for me to crack. Maybe hoping I'd come running. But I didn't. Eventually, she peeled off into the night, the sound of her tires slicing through the quiet like a blade. I watched through the peephole until her taillights disappeared. Then I stepped away, heart steady, breathing slow. It was the last time I saw her. The days stretched out into something almost resembling normal. I built a new routine, piecing my life together from scraps. Wake up early. Take the dog for a long walk through the empty fields behind the house. Work. Home. Eat. Sleep. Repeat. It was simple. Quiet. Boring by some standards. But it was mine. Jessica's ghost still lingered sometimes in stupid ways that caught me off guard. The way the faucet dripped slightly even after being shut off. The way her perfume stubbornly clung to the inside of the closet no matter how many times I aired it out. The way my hand would still, sometimes, automatically reach for a second coffee mug in the morning. Habits built out of survival, now crumbling into dust. One night, maybe a month after she finally disappeared for good, I found myself standing in the backyard, staring up at the stars. It was quiet except for the crickets. The air was cool and sharp. The world kept turning, utterly indifferent to the mess she left behind. I thought about everything, all of it, the good, the bad, the screaming matches that blurred into silence, the way she would lie with such ease it was like breathing for her. How quick she was to laugh at my expense when it made her look clever in front of other people. How small she made me feel when she was bored, sharpening me down with little insults masked as jokes. All of it. I remembered every sharp word, every fake apology, every betrayal she tried to paint as a misunderstanding. And standing there under that vast, endless sky, a truth settled into me so deeply it felt like a second spine. I was never loved the way I deserved to be. Not by her. And that wasn't my fault. Maybe it had taken losing everything to finally see it, but I wasn't broken. I wasn't weak. I wasn't the villain she tried to make me out to be every time she got caught. I was a man who had finally learned where the line was, and who had finally learned to stop moving it for someone who never deserved it. I didn't feel victorious. There was no movie ending, no triumphant music swelling in the background. Just peace. Heavy. Earned. Fragile but real. I stayed outside a long time that night, feeling the earth beneath my feet, the stars sprawling endless and cold above me. Jessica had been a storm. A hurricane. A wildfire that burned through everything good and blamed the ashes on someone else. But storms pass. Fires burn out. And I was still standing. Maybe battered. Maybe a little scorched around the edges. But alive. It's strange how endings don't feel the way you expect. There wasn't a clean break, no moment where I stood up and said, that's it. I'm healed. No dramatic sunrise, no sudden lifting of the weight. It happened the way real things do, slow, uneven, creeping in quietly until one day you realize you're breathing easier without even noticing. It wasn't about Jessica anymore. It wasn't even about what she did. It was about me, about finally choosing myself over the wreckage she left behind. In the weeks that followed, I started reclaiming the small things first. I repainted the front door, a deep, rich blue that had nothing to do with her opinions. I pulled out the old dishes she hated and started using them just because they were mine. I bought new sheets, donated her leftover junk, burned the last traces of her perfume from the fabrics with windows thrown wide open, letting the wind scrub the house clean. I even smiled, sometimes real, unforced smiles that stretched across my face without warning when I caught the dog snoring on the couch or when the smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen in the morning. Life wasn't perfect. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't the life I thought I was building 6 years ago when I slipped a ring onto Jessica's finger and promised her everything I had. But it was honest. And it was mine. I didn't date right away. People suggested it, coworkers, old friends, even my own brother after too many beers on his back porch, but I wasn't interested. I wasn't looking for someone to fill the empty spaces Jessica left behind. I was learning to live with them. Learning that empty isn't always bad. Sometimes it's just the room you need to build something better. When I think back now, when I replay the way she laughed as she stuffed her things into those boxes, the way she sneered and told me I'd regret losing her, I don't feel anger. I don't even feel pity. I feel distance. Jessica is a story I once lived through, a fire I once walked into willingly because I didn't know any better. But I'm not standing in that fire anymore. I'm not the man who begged for crumbs of loyalty from someone who never knew how to give it. I'm the man who walked away. The man who locked the door and didn't look back. The man who let the hurricane pass without chasing after the wreckage. And if there's one thing I can say to anyone out there reading this, anyone who feels that sick pit in their stomach when they notice the lies stacking up, anyone who keeps hoping that this time will be different, listen to yourself. Trust the voice that says this isn't love. Because real love doesn't make you doubt your own worth. Real love doesn't hide behind cheap perfume and late-night excuses and gaslit arguments where you're always the villain no matter how much you give. Real love builds you. Strengthens you. And if you have to burn your whole life down just to escape the grip of someone who only knows how to tear you apart, do it. Walk through the fire. You'll survive. You'll heal. You'll rebuild. And one day you'll stand under a wide-open sky, breathing free, and realize you were never really losing anything at all. You were setting yourself free.